Welcome, Vault Dwellers. My name is Nacho Bidness, and today we are going to do a little tutorial on how I wired up my trap base. Unfortunately, I think that it is simply too complex to try and do all the wiring in this kind of thumbnail sketch that I have made of the base itself. There are too many places where I'm passing wires through walls, using some conduits to move power around and things like that that are just gonna make it so hard to understand what's going on because you can't see all of it all at once. And so I am not going to attempt to show you how to pack all of the wiring into a physical building. After all, your building may be a little bit differently laid out than mine, so that information might not even be useful to you. Instead, I'm going to do my very best to show you how to wire this up in just this open floor plan over here so that we can kind of see everything simultaneously in what's going on. So the first thing that we need to talk about is this thing requires a lot of plans and it requires a lot of perks. It is not something for low-level players. And as I've said in previous videos, ultimately, it's not worth it. From a gameplay standpoint, you're not going to make a profit doing something like this. But it has been a lot of fun in that I have been able to interact with my fellow players quite a bit by having something like this. And some of them, at least, can appreciate the level of expertise that it takes to build something like this, and we're pretty cool about it. So the perks that we need are fireproof, demolition expert, science, and home defense. They can all be at level 1, but you need at least level 1 of those 4 perks in order to build this particular base, in addition to all of the plans. So that in and of itself is a barrier to entry. I think a lot of people just aren't going to take some of those perks. Nevertheless, I did promise a tutorial, so a tutorial you shall have. The first thing that we've got is we've just got this one power node that I'm going to use to power everything in the actual trap base. This is kind of what runs all my upstairs lights and all that kind of stuff. And the first and simplest thing to understand is that I had a manual override for that door so that I would be able to bait the trap without actually getting myself locked inside of it. So I had a switch on a wall upstairs that I, through some fancy tricks, hooked it to the door downstairs directly so that I would be able to operate that door manually from the upstairs. The second element was another switch that operated essentially all of the trap machinery. There are several things that are connected to the output of this switch. Again, one of the easiest to understand is I had a number of lights out front that were to try and attract other players. Now, not all of them were wired lights that hooked directly to the switch, but they all turned on and off with the operation of this switch. So that's the first thing that goes on the second switch. The next thing that goes on that second switch is the pressure plate. Now, on my actual trap, this is on the outside of the door. When a player steps on it, they're able to step through the door before it closes. And at that point, there is no way from the inside of the door to open it. Today, we're just going to put it on the inside of the door, again, so that we can see everything kind of all connected together. And that also is, by itself, easy to understand. Step on the pressure plate and the door opens, right? As long as this switch is on and providing power to the pressure plate will be active, and the door will open when somebody steps on it. The next thing that I had, nope, don't even play Black Ops. The next thing that I had hooked to that switch upstairs was a terminal, and I used this to activate the electric eye switch. Those switches tend to be a little bit twitchy, and it's best to arm them using a terminal. And I think I actually demonstrated that during the tour. If you need help with that, leave me a comment, and I'll either try and answer that comment, or I will maybe do another tutorial. So the next and last thing I think that was hooked to this upstairs switch was the electric eye itself. And that is just set up so that whenever someone crosses it, it will activate and start sending out power. There are two things that are hooked up to the electric eye. The first is this roll-up door. In my actual trap base, I had two of these roll-up doors, one on either side as you entered the base. Next thing that we have is also connected to the same circuit as the roll-up door, a siren. Doesn't really provide a lot of gameplay function, but I think that it helps increase the panic level on a player if they hear that going off when those doors are rolling up and the flamethrowers are starting to activate. So this siren, again, connected to the roll-up door circuit. Next thing that I had here was I had another separate circuit that was just for the flamethrowers and the Tesla arcs. And I tell you, since this latest patch, I've had to go in and out of the build mode so many times. So that was the conduit switch that I had upstairs. So I'm just going to get some power on this, and I'm going to get out the conduit switch itself. And hook that up. And I'm also just going to get another floor conduit here. Well, there we go, it'll go on that side, that's fine. So this is the switch that we can use to make the thing safe. In other words, if you do not want your flamethrowers to activate, especially since, as I've said many times, they are quite expensive to repair, you can have that switch off and it will keep those flamethrowers from activating. So we just hook this up to the other side of that switch, and we're good to go. As I said, I did my very best to just try and lay this out in a flat plane rather than, have it go upstairs and downstairs and inside and outside, and into multiple rooms as it does in the base, but as you can see, this is still a fairly complex wiring setup. But I hope that it will at least inspire some ideas for you. Let's show how the thing actually works one last time. So I'm going to use my terminal here to arm the switches, the electric eye switch I should say. So arm all, and I'm not sure which way it spawns, but we're going to make sure that it says trigger on anything. We're going to get back out of there. And so once this pressure plate is unstuck, there we go. So that is just annoying how those things can stick like that. I really do wish that they would fix that. Come on. There we go. Oh, you gotta be kidding. Alright. This one seems extra sensitive, wants to go every time I stand even near it. So how it works is, if I've got this switch off, all the ads are off, the pressure plate is inactive, and there's really no power in the lower part of the base where the trap is located. As soon as I turn the switch on, if someone steps on this pressure plate, the door opens, they step through, they cross the electric I-beam, and at that point the roll-up doors come up, and if this switch is in the on position, the flamethrower is activated. I hope that this was maybe going to give you some ideas on some things that you can try in your own base. Again, even with the simplified system that Fallout 76 has, this is a reasonably complex build. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button down below. If you didn't like, especially because it was too complicated, I understand. But if you didn't like and you hit that dislike button, please tell me why in the comments so I can try and do better for you next time. I do have more Fallout 76 content coming, so be sure and subscribe. Until next time, my name is Nacho Bidness, and I'm saying it's a great big wasteland out there. Let's go have fun in it. One last little note. Somebody decided that they were going to try and take the airport from me when I was in the middle of trying to make this video. It was somebody who was 40-some levels below me. They were in power armor and hilariously couldn't even hit me. I didn't even use a stim pack during the fight. Instead, I killed them right out of their stinking power armor, and that fool was carrying a whole lot of very valuable junk. They had all over 90 adhesive. They had 90 glass shards, which isn't valuable, but I can still bulk it and sell it. They had 100 and some fertilizer. They had over 100 leather, and they had something like 90 copper. I mean, it was 80 copper. It was absurd that they would go into PvP combat, even in adventure mode, carrying so much stuff. I admit that I took great pleasure in robbing that person blind after they tried to disrupt me, and I asked very nicely for them to go away so I could make my YouTube video.